How's it going? It's me, Robert Phoenix. I'm back with another edition of the Astro Weather. I really like this background. I think this is, what state is this from? This might be from Missouri. This could be a Missouri picture. I really like it. It's got that kind of just starting to maybe happen, a little bit of spring feel, right? You got some growth back here. It's like the sort of the dawn of a new season. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is where we break down the astrological weather, what's going on up there in there with the so-called collective and potentially within each and every one of us, because we are organelle of the collective, and the collective itself represents our expression and our energy and is a placeholder for our own individual archetypal manifestation. So how about that to get your morning going? Let's see, where are we here? Let's bring the chart up. Hope everybody is having a fine time. Having a fine time as the world heads towards deconstruction. Let's have a great time as the old world falls apart and the new one is yet to cohere. And that's really what's happening. You look around, you have all these ossified old leaders kind of leaving the stage. I mean, we're clearly going from this Capricornian guard to more of an Aquarian reality. When you look at just who's leaving the planet, who's resigning, and it's gonna be interesting tonight. Speaking of ossified remains, Joe Biden will have a State of the Union. Can you believe that? And apparently, Trump is going to do a mystery science theater kind of commentary over the State of the Union. I think that's going to be probably on Truth Social. Trump is always good for a few comedy moments. So if you're looking for a laugh, I'm sure that won't disappoint. Okay, why don't we get into the weather? Let's just jump right into it. I know a lot of you have busy days, busy lives. By the way, shout out to Elizabeth today. Happy birthday. Happy solar return, Miss E. And I hope this is a tremendous year for you. And congratulations on getting your first client for your new business. What a great way to start your solar return year. Okay, let's zoom in. Let's get close. Let's get up close and personal. All right, here comes that moon. We were talking about that moon yesterday, getting all funky and balsamic. The bitter moon. It's been around for the last 30 days. You can begin to smell it in your refrigerator. It's like, what is that? What's that smell? Honey, that's the moon. This always happens. It's like sour milk at the end of 30 days. Okay. Can we get it out of here? Well, there's some benefit to drinking sour milk. So there's some benefit to the bitter. This is an interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out here. I've never thought about this, but because the moon is balsamic in nature, here, right? I wonder if it is actually a benefit to consume bitter or fermented foods during a balsamic moon. I've never thought about this because it matches the state of the moon. So anything like, I guess, what would you have, like yogurts or anything that's sauerkraut, any of the probiotic stuff, maybe kefir, if you do that, right? I mean, it's an interesting thought to consume bitter or fermented products. Of course, they have to be natural, organic during a balsamic moon. Never thought about that. It might be very beneficial to your system. We're going to get into something today over on 15 minutes. Kind of like we got into it yesterday, and I know it's a bit of a tease, but I'm trying to link the content together so that I can talk about things here and then move the conversation over there. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about, which does again reflect kind of what's going on here, is how Kathy Hochul has placed state troopers in the New York City subway system. And we're gonna get into the why of that. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when we talk about the moon in general, it's ruled by the fourth house. So we talk about security. We talk about security. We talk about the things that make us safe, right? That's the home. Your home is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be nurturing. Of course, a lot of us have been thoroughly tested on that front over the course of our lives, but theoretically, right? That's how it's supposed to go down. So that's how the moon rolls, and now we have it right. This moon is conjuncting Mars, which does represent the police, centurions, military, right? Force. So I think it's really interesting that we're going to be having a discussion about these troops that are being placed in the subway. And she really hasn't given a valid reason. So, but we'll jump into that. And it feels again like this is part of the discussion. Um, Now, overnight, I don't follow these things. If I could, I'd have a Neuralink reality without Neuralink. But I'd be curious as to what happened overnight with some of the money markets as Pluto, there's the moon conjuncted Pluto, and I haven't done any scans of. I was just kind of getting up and getting my head together for the show. It'd be interesting to see what happened overnight, and especially with crypto. Crypto's been going on this real bull run, so we could be in a big pump and dump phase, which you have to be very, very wary of. Although, if you're in the market, you're probably smiling from ear to ear right now. Um, so we are getting into security, right? And this is all kind of going back to yesterday's discussion about cyber hacks, cyber attacks, which we talked about over on 15 minutes. And the moon comes into play here, right? Remember, the moon is about security. So is there more vulnerability? Are we going to see kind of more backdoor operations, more backdoor hacks? Are we going to be hearing more about that today? It's quite possible because there's a vulnerability here with the moon, especially as it moves into this balsamic phase. Now, as it relates to emotions, remember the Aquarian moon is chilly, cold, right? It's a cool moon. If you have an Aquarian moon, I'm not bagging on your moon. Just please, you have to understand this. But it is a cool moon. It's not like an Aries moon or a Leo moon. It's not like a Scorpio moon. It's kind of cool and observational and detached. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But when we get that moon Mars conjunction, that is the cold rage. That is the cold and calculated rage. How's the saying? Revenge is best served cold. This is kind of one of those days. This is revenge served cold on a platter. And I'm not advocating that you seek revenge. But every now and then, man, it drops in your lap. Every now and then, the opportunity to even the score drops in your lap. This could be one of those days. And sometimes you are executing justice as the hand of God, whether you know it or not. Whether you know it or not. Now, there's an intentionality piece around this, and everything's a little intentional, right? Nothing just sort of happens at the spur of the moment. I mean, somewhere deep down inside that spur of the moment action was triggered by a deeper subconscious intentionality. But it's also going to come across over the course of the next 24 hours, right? It's going to hit Mars, it's going to hit Venus, and damn, it's coming in and squaring Jupiter and squaring Uranus. Feels to me very, very insecure. This goes right back to yesterday's discussion around cybersecurity, hacks, attacks. I would expect more, probably banking. Look to banking with this moon square with Jupiter, square Uranus. Where are we? Thursday. It's usually the most active news day before the Friday news dump. So any kind of organically generated news matter would happen on a day like today. So the good news is with the Aquarian moon, you can kind of look at it dispassionately. If you're involved in negotiation, that Aquarian moon is quite good. You're not attached to your position. You can take it or leave it, right? Especially since it's on the other side of Pluto. The other thing too is the moon tends to be nostalgic, and this is like a phase over the next 24 hours where I think there's kind of a yearning for a certain type of nostalgia, the way things used to be, especially with like Jupiter and Taurus and the things that used to make us feel, comfortable. And, it's kind of like, and I wasn't exposed to these until later on in life because I didn't grow up in the Midwest. But I think it was around, I don't know, 2007. 2007. I used to take my kid to this enormous Long's drugstore in Oakland. Huge, before Long's went out of business. I loved that store, by the way. And in the front, they had somebody who sold hot dogs. Of course, don't really know any better. Kids love hot dogs. And this guy started to sell these Chicago style hot dogs. And they had this like, radioactive green mustard or some shit like, it was the relish. It was greener and brighter than any relish I'd ever seen. Right. And it's not good for you. I mean, you just look at it. I mean, for me, it was a curiosity because I've never had like a Chicago hot dog like that before. But people in Chicago in the Midwest know what I'm talking about, the radioactive relish. And it's kind of like looking back, right? You're looking back at stuff like that. And you realize, well, it probably wasn't very good for me. Whether it was the hot dog and the hot dog probably then is probably better than, meat substitute now. So, it's all relative, isn't it? But we're looking back on these things in a way. And then, we're also realizing, well, maybe they all weren't all that good for us. But there's still that tinge of nostalgia, I think, that we're dealing with. It's in the air. I even saw a bit of it on Twitter this morning before I jumped on. People were saying, "What's your 10 favorite non-comedy TV shows of all time?" That's nostalgic. So this is in the air, right? So, and again, as things ramp up and speed up, and we see the what I would call the growing instability or the cyber threat or the cyber attack, whatever. This nostalgia becomes more prominent. It's like, God, I remember, I remember the first time the ATM was introduced. I was living in Foster City. I was about 19 years old. So this must have been around 78, 70, 79. And I remember looking at this ATM and I thought, this is the fucking end of the world. Swear to God, that was my thought. Like, we're in trouble now. This thing, I don't know. I don't know about this thing. Give me the teller. Give me the teller. I'm kind of wired that way. So this is part of what we're I think experiencing today, even in your own life, like looking at who was there, who wasn't been there, who hasn't been there, and facing a brave new world. I mean, this is really kind of the lineup for the brave new world. So, factor that. I think you can dip into the past and you can dispassionately look at it and say, well, this was good, this wasn't so good. Um, and where are we moving? Like, where are we headed? I feel like this moon is also indicative of new housing trends. And when I look at this, what pops into my brain is the undocumented visitors, the undocumented new people, and their homes, right? Their living situation, which is theoretically Aquarian. Oh well, everybody deserves a home. Everybody deserves a chance. Like that's in the air. And then of course, so-called Americans are looking around and what the fuck? What about us? We got people living in cardboard boxes, right? So this is a really interesting phase of the moon, and we're dealing with like outer sign, outer planet material, but we're also dealing with it on a very personal level because of the nature of Taurus. And Taurus grounds us and connects us to this so-called third dimension in reality. Now we got this Uranian wing here, which makes it a little crazy and different, right? And it sparks tension. And there's a spark of tension between the old and the new. And I'm not saying that everything old was good, and I'm not saying that everything new is bad. But we're in that flux point, right? This is what this is all about. We're seeing the flux point. Let's get back to our ongoing story here with all the Pisces stuff. Saturn is there at 10 degrees. The sun is moving on. We got a sun Mercury conjunction today. Are your thoughts in Pisces? It's really hard to distinguish. And, today's one of those days where there's, I think, a lot of psychic and telepathic potential. The veil between your mind and the mind of another person gets real thin today. That's how I see it. And you got these sextiles going on, especially with Uranus and unusual modes of communication. The danger with the Sun Mercury conjunction is the identification. I am my thoughts. And sometimes with Pisces, thoughts will enter into your brain. Like, how the fuck did that get there? Do I really want this here? Is this even my thought? That's something you may want to pay attention to. I mean, just as kind of a personal social experiment. If you're out and about and you're in a public space and you start having random thoughts, look around the room that you're in. It's like, is this really my thought? Who am I sharing this space with? But I do think it's one of those days where there's a great deal of compassion. There's been a lot of talk about empathy and compassion. Empathy and compassion. They're two different things, by the way. They're not the same. And I I don't want to get into that rabbit hole. I was going to go down like a particular rabbit hole, but we're not going. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Mercury Neptune conjunction. It's still early in the morning for me. I was looking at Priapus. It is the Mercury. It's even more. It's even more. Are you your thoughts? It's even more telepathic. It's even more liquid. It's even more fluid. That's wow. That just went up a level. Sorry. I had a little Priapus moment there. So yeah, Mercury Neptune. Whoa. See, I had a Mercury Neptune moment. I was on a slipstream of thought, but I corrected myself. Thank God. Uh, it's interesting because Mercury is also kind of moving into this by degree sextile with Pluto. So today's a fascinating day when it comes to ideas and thoughts and communication. You know, this is one of those days. Maybe I'll initiate the conversation. where we can commune with our dearly departed loved ones. The veil is thin here. It's very thin. And that sextile to Pluto, Pluto takes us into the underworld, right? Or at least the other world. Doesn't always have to be the underworld, although it does stand for that. It's very interesting day with Mercury, Neptune. I'd also keep an eye out for what people say. This is one of those days where, in the course of a casual conversation, people will kind of reveal themselves. It's like, well, what'd you say? That's interesting. Because it's just, it's a flow day. It's it's definitely a flow day. Um, Fascinating. I think, I mean, yeah, and again, we're gonna have this conjunction for the next couple days. Of course, at around 26 degrees, Mercury will move past Neptune, but right now Neptune's in front of Mercury. So in a lot of ways, that's more supernatural. It's more like unexplainable. And the brain is there to try to figure out what the hell did I just think? And again, look around when you're in a social situation. I don't normally have these kinds of thoughts. Who is it? Who's the culprit here? Very fluid, very, very fluid. This is also one of those days where you're going to get a lot of, again, I come back to the buzzwords: empathy and compassion, empathy, compassion, empathy, compassion. And it'll be interesting this thing with Biden tonight. He's got a State of the Union. Is he going to have a stand-in? Is he going to have a double? They're going to jack him up on uh, Ritalin. Who the fuck knows, right? But that's, again, it's going to be one of those things where, is he going to stay on script? How is this thing going to go down? What's going to be revealed? And of course, you'll have all the pundits protecting him. So, a very interesting day, and Sun, Saturn, sextiling Jupiter, Uranus, which again is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just keep moving towards whatever future you have. Whatever future you're cultivating, move towards it. Have faith in it. And if you make some mistakes along the way, right? We got a nice little space for innovation with the Sun Uranus sextile. You can course correct. You can do a few things. You can catch yourself. You can improvise. Again, we've been in this really interesting kind of either or um, proposition. It's like butting up against the squares, and we do that in our own personal lives, and of course, what's going on out there, we're flowing into the sextile. This has been the theme for roughly the last week, and I don't think we're going to really break from that anytime soon. Because even when the moon moves into Pisces, we're still in that which is what, day and a half away. We're still in that either or kind of option, and maybe even more so with the balsamic moon um, coming into play. Do you want the easy button or the hard button? That's kind of how this has been going on for a while. And some people like the hard button, some people like the easy button, and sometimes the hard button is the one to take, but not always. Not always. I'm not. It's like we live in, and I do believe that there isn't really great gain without great sacrifice. Like if you want to have a decent physique, you need to watch your diet, you need to exercise, you need to do the things that provide you with a healthy body and a decent physique. You have to sacrifice certain foods, sacrifice certain habits, right? That's just a fundamental thing. So yeah, if you want something, sacrifice is part of the equation. and hard work is part of the equation, but not always. There are other times where those kinds of things can be habitual. And it's like you've been doing the same thing for a very long time. And I'm talking about working out, but I'm talking about getting stuck in a rut, getting stuck in the fact that, I got to go out there every single day and I got to go to war. I got to go to war with reality. No, you don't always have to go to war with reality. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. This is an option time. Just like it's if everything is easy all the time, you get lazy, you just expect things to be easy all the time. That's not good. So, it's the yin and the yang, the bitter and the sweet. And here we go. This is what we've been dealing with. And and you can move between the two. So we're in this pattern for a while. It's like a weather pattern. We're in this weather pattern for a while. So you get to kind of work it out and see how these things manifest in your life. Okay, let's talk about our True Hemp Science star of the day. Let me get the old banner up here. Here we go. Our True Hemp Science star of the day, brought to you by True Hemp Science, your one-stop shop for all things CBD. Now, remember, all you got to do is go to truehempscience.com, check out what they have. If you like the product, if it sounds intriguing, and trust me, this is high quality, organically sourced CBD, some of the best you'll find. All you got to do is type in 15MINS and you will get a free goodie bag with your order. So you get to have some goodie stuff, right? Like little vials, little gummies. They'll come with your order and you'll like it. Trust me. $150 more, get you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money back guarantee. All right, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Whoop, come back here. Come back here. You ever get in that place where your windows just kind of go crazy? There we go. Today's True Hemp Science star of the day is Peter Sztrok. You remember this guy, don't you? You know, it's really interesting. I was looking for that picture of him where he looks like the devil. It's very hard to find now. I found one copy of it, and it was kind of a montage of some other photos. Interesting, like the most incriminating photo of this guy, and you can't find it. So this to me, this typifies his arrogance, and he's got a very interesting chart. So let me zoom in on this, and I'll tell you the strengths and the weaknesses of his chart. First of all, when it comes to this whole idea of will, he's got a Mars Saturn conjunction, and it's within a 5-degree orb, and it's in Taurus. This is a guy who has an ironclad will. I'm telling you, like once he's onto something, he will not let go of it. Like Sztrok has a bit of a pit bull in him. I think you saw that, and it's interesting because it's connected on a string to Jupiter up here at the top of the chart. And I think Jupiter is where the arrogance comes in his chart. Like it's the highest planet. It's in the ninth house. It's hanging out there in dignity because that's Jupiter's house. He's convinced, especially in Scorpio, that he knows more than everybody. He just knows more than ever. He probably speaks multiple languages because he's got some interesting things going on with Mercury and some other stuff in his chart. Um, that I think that's where his arrogance comes from. And we're talking about a fixed opposition. So when he wanted to, quote unquote, tear down Trump, you got that Mars Saturn conjunction. And, whatever you think of Peter Strzok, if I was in the CIA or FBI, and apparently he worked for both, um, I'd hire this guy for a mission because of that Mars Saturn conjunction and the opposition with Pluto, especially if he was ideologically predisposed to carry out that mission. Because we're talking fixed planets here, right? And that's what he was doing. He and Lisa Page, and all those other people were hell bent on bringing down Trump because they were convinced that he was the worst thing for the country. It was their patriotic duty. Whether you agree with him or not, that's what was driving him. There's also something. I think he's got a weird sex life. He's got Mars in the third house, which is generally considered to be kind of kinky. And he's got it conjunct Saturn. Like, I think this guy's into rough shit. I think he's into rough play. It's funny. I was talking about Michelangelo. This is like sex lives of the rich and infamous or something. But no, you can tell, right? Like this guy's he's got some weird fetish stuff. Uranus is in the eighth house. That's the underworld. That's sex. He's got that in conjunct with Uranus and Saturn, and Neptune coming in with the in conjunct with Mars. I think when you get into that territory, especially with Neptune and Mars, morality becomes very fluid. And he's got Neptune on his midheaven. And, in Sagittarius, it's like kind of like the true believer. It's retro. A lot of people that have Neptune in Sagittarius seem to have it retrograde. There's more and again, there's always going to be retrograde cycles that are going to be universal with planets. But it just seems like whenever I look at Neptune and Sagittarius, it seems to be retrograde. Anyway, again, like false ideals, the true believer, like, he probably believed in what he was doing. He thought that, because when you get into Sagittarius, or you get into the ninth house, and Jupiter, the ruler of the ninth house, you can be really ideological and dogmatic. So this guy had a bit of a dogmatic nature to him. Now, I do think he's also a liar. He's got Mercury squaring Neptune in his chart. So he will lie if he needs to. Like if you're a spy or you're an intelligence, you're basically being paid to be a professional liar. Especially if you're doing undercover work or some form of espionage, you can't be who you say you are. So that is fundamentally a lie. So it's probably part of the work, right? On some level, but on another level, Mercury Neptune squares generally produce people who are prevaricators. Now, you may have a Mercury Neptune square and you may not be a liar, which I've talked about before, but that doesn't mean that they won't be in your life, right? It's one of those things. You're either dealing with the lie directly or you're dealing with the lie indirectly. And so people that have Mercury Neptune squares and a little Venus Neptune square as well have to deal with gullibility. and trusting people. But not this guy. He's using it to his advantage. And remember, again, I'm not here to, this is not Rona Barrett and the sordid tales of the DC insiders and their sexual proclivities. But he was married when he was banging Lisa Page. That's a lie. I don't know. Maybe his wife knew. Maybe I'm outside that loop. But generally, it was regarded as an affair. An affair is usually secretive. He's got a shit ton of planets in Pisces. He may have more Pisces than anybody else I've ever seen. Venus, Sun, Moon, True Node. Look at that. So he's born on an eclipse, right? He's born on a solar eclipse. Am I right here? Just about. Just about. This is about as eclipsy as it gets, like a pre-eclipse moment. What else can I say about him? He's smart. He's a smart guy, right? Like whatever you think of him with his morality or character or whatever, right? We looked at the chart and the chart is agnostic. And he's got a Mercury Jupiter trine. He's not dumb. Not dumb. He's able to take very big ideas, which is Jupiter in the ninth house, and kind of bring them down to size. Or he can amplify his ideas and make them bigger. So he's not a dummy. He also has a wide conjunction with the moon, which means he has probably, especially in Pisces, he probably has a very powerful memory. So if you're learning languages or trying to learn languages, that Moon-Neptune conjunction can be very helpful because you get to remember things. And I've run across this because I have a Moon-Neptune conjunction. I'm sorry, Moon-Mercury conjunction. See, Neptune-Mercury's kicking in. If you have a Moon-Mercury conjunction, I think it's easier and better for learning languages because you just remember things. And since I have a Mercury Moon conjunction in my chart, it's been something that's been of interest to me on a personal level. And one of the things, and this is, I'm not saying this to pump myself up. I'm just telling you because it illustrates Peter Sztrok's chart that people that have Moon Mercury conjunctions tend to be very intelligent, right? So he's no dummy. This guy is no dummy. But what he does with his theoretically prodigious gifts, like Peter Sztrok, he has the chart of an actor. He has the chart of a writer, somebody who, if they wanted to, could, go the literary route. Jupiter in the ninth house, college professor. But instead, he decided to navigate. And I think, from what I understand, it's kind of a family thing with him, if I'm not mistaken. So even with the moon, it's something that's inherited. Got one square, and usually when you have one square, that square stands out like a sore thumb. He's got a moon Neptune square as well, right? Mercury and the moon. Again, moon Neptune square, this emotionally, like, not trustworthy. But again, if you're a spook, I think you kind of want those things. I think those types of what we would call negative attributes become positive attributes, because that's a world where there's a lot of fluidity. And maybe he turned it into an asset. Well, he is an asset, right? And again, I'm just looking at this from an astrological perspective. He's got that Venus Neptune trine. He could be incredibly charming. This is the guy who could be very charming. And I think maybe this is what he did with Lisa Page. Who knows what he does in his personal life? This is a guy who could put people under a spell. And there is a weirdly supernatural vibe to this dude. Like when you look at that picture, which again is hard to find, you can kind of see that Mars Saturn thing going on, right? Like even though it's in Taurus, Mars rules the head. It looks like the guy's got fucking horns in that one picture. So there's definitely something occulty and supernatural. And I think he's very, that was the one thing when he went up there and started to testify, he had all these sort of tricks in his book, right? Like, well, I can do this and I can do this because it's worked for me so well in my personal life and in my spy life, but it didn't look good in public. That was Neptune on his midheaven, right? Like he was being exposed. And the things that he was able to use as his strengths became a major and glaring weakness in the eyes of the public. So he's got a trippy chart. And I think he's got an actually very powerful chart. And when you're around somebody who has a tremendous amount of Pisces in their chart, there's something otherworldly about them and kind of supernatural and very persuasive. And they have a kind of charisma, right? With all that Pisces, because they can project things like empathy. They can project things like beauty and love and unconditionality. And Sztrok has this and probably used this to great effect, as I say, in his work. But at the end of the day, he was exposed on probably back at it, doing whatever spooks do. So there you go. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Peter Sztrok. All right. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell because usually if you subscribe, you'll be unsubscribed. And you want to be able to get the notice for this, which usually happens about a half an hour before the show. And feel free, if you are so inclined, to buy me a coffee. Everybody that's bought me a cup of coffee, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. In lieu of being monetized here and getting super chats, we have our little coffee, a little coffee link down there in the show notes. Also in the show notes is a link to 15 minutes. Come on over. We'll talk about boots on the ground in New York City and some other stuff related to that. All right. I want everybody to have a blessed day. God be with you. The Most High. Take good care. Bye for now.